Monday, February 8th. Welcome everyone to Living Room Sports Talk. Here, Macaulay, Zach Rothenberg, and this is awesome, Zach. We've had a lot of guests on this show, but I swear I've never been more excited for one in my entire life than the great Mike LaRosa from Trail Brewing Company coming on. Oh, this is great, Mike. Thanks so much for jumping on with us.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh my God, it's funny how we're jumping on. This has been so much fun just chatting with you before we, as we got on the air here, and it's amazing how if anyone that watches our show, they know I'm personally addicted a good bit to your beers, a lot. It's and I was telling you beforehand, like Wegmans probably thinks I'm like a drug dealer or something, just because like the amount of times I'm just sitting in the parking lot going in and out just for 5 minutes to grab just your beers. Like I know people by a first name basis there, like Lords in aisle 15. But no, this is so great. So we have a lot of athletes and coaches jump on our podcast, but this is the first time we have a brewmaster on. This is really cool stuff.
Yeah, well, it's just my life.
It's not fair. Let me ask you a generic question though. What's it like just that your life is beer, right? Like tasting beer. I feel like everyone would generically say like, oh, that must be so much fun. But like, there's so much that probably goes behind that.
Yeah, it's a dream. It's we always joke it's not all a Sam Adams commercial. You're not just like sitting there sniffing hops all day and sitting in overalls on bags of grain drinking beer. But I mean that certainly happens from time to time, but it's not an everyday occurrence. But I'd say being a brewer is primarily cleaning. The brewing process is extremely sanitary. You're constantly cleaning tanks or cleaning the floor, cleaning the outside of the tank, cleaning parts. So the idea is if the space is clean, the beer is clean. So
yeah, and looking doing some reading up on you, some articles that we saw. You got started at a pretty early age of 17. Is that right? Was it just an at-home brew kit?
I started homebrewing with my dad when I was about 17. He was a homebrewer from way back, like before I was born. He was really into homebrewing, so we sort of bonded over it. I came to him. I was in high school, obviously. I was like, I'd like to get into beer, and beer wasn't very taboo in our house. Like, we were allowed to have a beer at dinner, sort of things, or at big events. And I told him that it's like, oh, it seems interesting. Like, I'd really like to try this. So we did it a couple times, and I enjoyed it. And I went off to school. I went to for a traditional bachelor's degree. I went to Albright College in Reading, Pennsylvania. When I was there, and I was thinking, like, well, I need to find an industry to impact, because I was going for, at the time, environmental science. Like, I'd really like to find something that I can, positively impact for the environment. I was like, well, brewing sounds fun. Like, brewing was cool. I did that with my dad a few times, and I called every brewery within a 50-mile radius, probably at the time, maybe even 75-mile radius, which wasn't very many at the time. This is 2010, maybe 2009, 2010, looking for an internship. And eventually my dad was friends with a friend of the brewer at the Rock Bottom in King of Prussia. I don't know if you guys have ever been
there. Some happy hours with some Vanguard friends.
Yeah, for sure. So the brewer at the time, his name was Brian. I sort of begged and pleaded and got the in with my dad, and he kept me on as an intern. I kept, every time I was there, hey, like, I'd love to have a job. I was just annoying him. And he eventually came and gave me a job. So I was with him for about 2 years, but that was probably the two most informative years of my brewing career. Just really laying foundation.
And we got the chat going here too. And by the way, will all the chat come in? Feel free, give us questions for Mike. We want to hear from you guys. And it's funny, Brent Ludwig was just saying that he's Neutral's biggest fan. And I swear, like, I'm telling you,
it's a name I know.
You got a whole following here now. It's funny too how you mentioned Albright. So ironic, this could not be like a smaller world. So both Zach and I, our girlfriends, both went to Albright. And I brought it up before we reached out to each other. Yeah. And they're a couple of years, I guess, behind. So we were trying to do the math in our head. So I don't think it would align, but because they're what
year did they graduate?
So if we were high school 09, so it would have been 13 for college, 14 for us, and they would have been 16.
Yeah, Nina was 18. Okay. She played basketball there. Nina Mazzarelli. I don't know if that rings a bell.
The names, I mean, it's a small enough school.
It's small, right?
The name rings a bell.
It's great. Well,
and who's your girlfriend?
Oh, Emily Hudson. So she played lacrosse at Auburn.
Yeah, that name's familiar. She might have been an ambassador, if I remember correctly.
I'll have to follow up and ask her on that one.
Yeah. Oh, you should know that, Karen. Come on.
I know. It's funny too. So, and we're also from the same hometown, downtown Pennsylvania, and it was crazy how that came to be. I couldn't believe it when you said when we're emailing each other. And so I guess that kind of leads, and it's funny how you were talking about, I was reading how, so you started 17 and you work your way, so you're an unpaid intern at rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically, like, no pun intended, you work your way up to assistant, like brewmaster, right? With it was Brian McConnell, I think, right, who started Sterling Peg.
Yep, that's correct.
And oh my God, we love them too. I mean,
His beer is fantastic.
Oh, I know that way. They started, I think, what, media now? There's the one in Westchester is one I always love going to.
Yeah, they started the media. It has to be 6 years ago now, 5 or 6 years.
Oh my God. But it's so cool. So I guess, like, how much did you learn from that process? And also, like, not to, like, and it's probably weird for you to, like, try to pat yourself on the back list, but, like, I was blown away reading this. I was like, damn, he started, like, at the bottom, and you worked your way all the way to that point. Like, that's, like, you got it takes guts, it takes grind, it takes effort, like, and it shows your beer now. Like, when I was, like, reading that, I'm like, no, this doesn't surprise me at all. Like, I mean, just your work ethic's incredible.
Yeah, it came from, my father is an extremely hard worker, and I really think that I gained a lot of his work ethic. So college was tough, man, because, like, by the time that I was a sophomore, no, I guess I had started my junior year, and I was professionally brewing, and I was like, well, do I really need to finish my college degree? And I did, but I was working over 40 hours a week between 3 jobs and going to school full time, just because I really wanted to be a brewer. And my parents really pushed me to finish my college education, and that work ethic sort of just went through into my career. I spent a few years with Rock Bottom, a few years between Saucony Creek and Kutztown, Manayunk, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I was gonna say I wrote them down. Like they're all such great places. Like, man, oh my God, all the ones. And then there was Kane, I think, right? And
yep. So Kane was like the next big break in my career. After getting into the industry, I'd say I was the head brewer at Kane. I think it was 2014 or 2015, and I worked with them during a really instrumental growth period for them, and we were brewing our asses off, just making head high and overhead. There are 2 IPAs, and he was riding high on the gold medal win from A Night to End All Dawns at GABF, and we were working on our dark beer program, and we formulated the recipe Sunday Brunch, which is a spoof off of Morning Bell, which was a previous beer for them. And that took off, and all those things were going well. And then I got approached by Gene from Tired Hands, and he sort of headhunted me. I just happened to be in the cafe one day, and he like pulled me aside, and because we knew each other, and he was like, "Hey, I'm building this project. Do you want to see it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. I'd love to go see it." And I'm like, inside my head, I'm freaking out. I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm going to see this space that he's building." And we're like walking through, and by the end of it, he pretty much had offered me the job to build and run the fermentorium. So did that for a few years, got the that off the ground, put in the canning line, put in a third space there to do more production. Was building a lab. The time he was building the general store, and all those things that eventually happened over the last 2 years, like St. Wonder's Cafe and the Beer Garden, were all things that we were talking about at that time. And I burnt out. I just did, like, I was 26 or 27, and I'd been working 80 hours a week, and I was just like, I just burnt out, and left Tired Hands and started my own consulting company. And that's how, go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. I was going to say, since that point, and that's kind of what spun you into to New Trail. And I was just ask you, how did that all come to be?
Yeah, so they were one of my first consulting clients. We sort of just found each other very early into me starting that company, and they are fun guys to work with. That was a very sentimental project. It was like the first project I completed with my consulting company, and we get to the end of it, and they didn't want me to go, and I wasn't sure that I was ready to leave yet. I wasn't sure I was ready to leave the project, and they offered me partnership to stay on board, so I did.
That's unbelievable. And you just never, like, I was going to say, so it's, how did, I guess, like, all you guys come to be, like, so I guess obviously with the consulting, like, but was it like we work with, like, how did those guys, I guess, separate themselves with, like, your other clients where, like, you wanted to just jump into this?
How did they separate themselves?
Mm-hmm.
They're accomplished businessmen. So they started a nightclub chain in 2001. They didn't know it in 2001 that they were going to start a nightclub chain, but they had opened a nightclub in Williamsport called the Cell Block. It's a really cool old jail centered right in the downtown of Williamsport. It still functions today, and they redid the whole thing. They were having all these huge parties, and the business was going really well for them. So they're like, well, I guess we'll open another one. And then that went well. They're like, well, I guess we'll open another one. So they, did that a few times, and eventually they sold off their nightclubs, and they owned a fine dining restaurant in Erie. They've owned a gastropub, a few gastropubs, and right now they operate 2 restaurants in downtown Williamsport, as well as they own like a small real estate company with a few apartments, and then the brewery. So I was really excited by the idea to work with people that knew what they were doing, that had business acumen. Because I'd worked with some notable breweries, and I know my stuff, but the business side of things, I was sort of on the outs on. I just didn't have the experience that they had. So they've been able to kind of guide us and point us in the right direction, and point me in the right direction, and mentor me,
I got to get a little sidetracked here, hence the name of our show, SideTracked. So when you were in college, like, were you showing up to parties with IPAs, double IPAs, and all this crap beer, while everyone else was drinking, Natty Light or Keystone?
Yes, it's funny you mentioned that. So one story comes to mind. It had to be my senior week, or it was like at the end of my senior year. We got busted at an on-campus party. Celebrates a small school, and it wasn't super safe necessarily to party too far off campus. So I was in a fraternity, and we were at some mixer up in one of the apartment complexes, which were like quadplexes, like there'd be 2 apartments on the bottom and 2 apartments on the top, and all these little like housing units around each other. So it was one of those places, and of course public safety shows up, and of course there was people that weren't 21 there. So they roll through, they get everybody's ID, and you're only allowed to consume alcohol on campus if everybody in the room is 21. So of course they're writing everybody up, getting everybody's name, and I'm like, fuck this, like I'm 21, like what does this matter? I'm moving on into a brewing career. So we have to go to a public safety hearing later where they like read off the charges, right? And when they read off the charges, they're reading all the alcohol items that were at the party. So it's like, Natty Daddy, and they're smearing off, and they're like reading off, and it's like Victory Prima Pills, Victory Hot Devil, Guinness, Rock Bottom Growler, like, and then it just like keeps going. I was like, well, shit, I at least know what I was drinking. So
that's funny.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So, and I was going to say, obviously Victory's in the backyard down in town. How much did they influence you to just like getting into the career of brewing, and just your influence even just today with your beers you make?
I think I think they were pretty influential into my career. I mean, it was very normal to me, and it's probably normal to you guys too, without even realizing it. You grow up in a town with one of the largest craft breweries in the country, and we watched it grow. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I remember going there when it was like a little like 2,000 square foot pub, and there was like pool tables and
pool table there.
Yeah, pool tables off on the left, and my dad used to take me. He'd go there to drink Hop Wallop or Hop Slam or whatever was. That wouldn't be Hop Slam, that's Bell's, but Hop Wallop or Hop Devil. Yeah. Or the ESB, he really liked the ESB, and I would be drinking root beer. The root beer was outstanding. I was, I couldn't have been 10 or 11 years old, just sitting in a bar playing pool with my dad. So, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I remember going to high school parties, and there was Victory. That was just like a thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, we went to Shanahan's, literally right in our backyard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's unbelievable, and their wings and stuff. Oh god.
Yeah, the pretzel for me. I love the pretzel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really are. It's everything. We're really treating this. I mean, just how much to like did this? I mean, I was reading too about like it's kind of like I'm asking, but I also know a little bit what I'm asking. But like, how much did this area influence you? Just, I mean, the rich microbrewery action going on in southeastern, just really in all Pennsylvania, but really, obviously you got Victory, you got Yingling. I mean, obviously Yingling's grown, but like, I mean, you have all sorts of different ones. I mean, Locust Lane's like 2 minutes from my apartment, right?
Oh, wow.
Stolen Sons and Exton, right? Like,
yeah, for
there's
sure.
so many different ones you can pick from. Phoenix has their own. But so I guess like to that point, how much did that culture, I guess, help with you?
A lot, I guess. I mean, it was Pennsylvania's got a really rich craft beer scene, like you were saying, and I was always interested. My dad was a small business owner. I'm a small business owner. I was really interested in Pennsylvania and economic development. That's eventually what I really focused on in college, was environmental studies, which is like the sociological side of environmental science, and specifically how small communities are affected by large corporations. So to me, it was always really interesting to own a small business and try to make an area come up. And certainly craft breweries are indicators of towns turning around. So.
And it's funny looking at the chat. So Joe P's got a great question, and we were talking a little bit about this right before we jumped on the air. So looking at New Trail, your beers are amazing, and we'll get into all of that in just a second. But I mean, it's funny. I'm drinking the Candy Hearts right now, which I love, and I seriously, I was saying, I wish I could just hang up your cans like art, like the patterns, the designs, like. So first of all, like, who does all that design for you, and second of all, like, what influences all these different cans and the artwork that goes behind it?
Sure. So the art for the cans comes from three primary sources. Originally, it came from a guy by the name of Ryan Keats, who owns a small design company in Lancaster, which is called Foxduck. If anybody travels through Lancaster, it's right on the main street near the farmers market. He does T-shirts and just general graphic work. He's very talented. So he came up with the original branding behind New Trail, and he did a lot of the cans from day one until about, I'd say, 6 months ago or so. Our design work became so much that we needed to bring in an in-house graphic designer. And she's very talented. Her name's Alyssa, and she's been with the company, like I said, for about 6 months. So anything that's come out in the last, I'd say, 3 months is probably a pretty good guess that it came from her, or at least anything that's new. And then
all your winter ones with the mountains.
Yeah. And then I will do some of the graphic design work too, depending on what's needed. So I took a few design courses, and I focused on photography when I was in high school. So I'm a little literate in Adobe. So when projects were tight about a year ago, and Ryan was too bogged down, I'd be like, well, screw this, I guess I'm just going to do it. So things like Mountain, Forest, all those beers are sort of spurred from me. Refracted Aurora was mine.
I love Mountain with you can see it if you look closely, and Brent's drinking that right now in the chat.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're brewing Field, I believe, actually right now. I think at the brewery they're actually brewing Field just this very moment. So
it's funny. So Whiteout, I think I just saw on social media, was released today too. How much fun was going into putting that beer together?
It was awesome. So Whiteout we released last year for the first time, and that was one of the first times we used a new hop, which at the time was called HBC 692. It was an experimental hop, and it just got named Talus about 6 months ago. They just unveiled that as like a primary hop for them. So we were super excited to use it. It was a derivative of Sabro. I don't know if you guys know Sabro hops, but they're very like coconut forward. And that was really exciting. And HBC 692, now known as Talus, it has coconut. It was like it's a daughter or a sister of Sabro. I can't quite remember. But it showed the other side of the tropical spectrum. So it's like super pineapple-y. It's definitely got coconut. It's papaya. It's really rich. It's really a fun hop to play with. So we paired that with I think it's Simcoe and Citra in Whiteout. Forgive me for not knowing off the top of my head.
No, are you kidding me? I'm just sitting here. So you're talking to someone that looks like hops. I'm just like, that's all I know. If you said, what goes into making beer? I'm like, there's hops in it. Like, it's super bad. Like with Nick Lovin, where he's like, I heard they put more hops in it. Like that's where I'm at with the whole process.
No, but it was fun to formulate. It was a neat hop to play with, and I'm very excited that they decided to move forward with Talus as a hop. So Whiteout's sort of like our first stab at trying to use that hop last year, and I'm very excited for this year's batch. I had some the other day. So,
well, and speaking of your hops, like this is probably, forgive me for asking this probably like in a rookie way, but the one thing I love about your beers, and this might sound like weird because if anything, it probably sounds like, wait, they taste the same. I feel like there's a consistent taste in all your beers. They're all different, but they have this consistent, almost like backbone to them that is just phenomenal. I guess that's like, I'd always be like, oh, it's that fresh New Trail taste. Like it's something where it's like if you taste it, whether it's a stout, whether it's a double hazy, like right, it doesn't. Whether it's a pilsner, like like every one of those expedition packs, like I could tell it's like, oh yeah, like this is it's got that new trail taste to it. Like what is that?
I don't know. I mean, I guess
It's the industry secret.
yeah, it's not, it's not me standing over the kettle going like this to make it taste better. I can tell you that much. We It's a process, probably, is what you're tasting. I mean, you're talking about consistency. Brewing is all about consistency. So I have a really strong team of brewers and packaging guys, and we all operate under the same SOPs. So the idea is just to make the most quality-driven beer that we can. And I suppose what you're tasting might be like house character, like you talk about, like, if you are into wine, like certain vineyards definitely have distinctive flavors, whether or not you're drinking one vintage to the next. I'm sure New Trail has that same sort of effect. We have a signature flavor, I suppose.
And I gotta ask, I know we're talking about your ingredients and all the crazy mixtures of everything and the artwork. How do you come up with some of these names? I mean, the names are great. They're creative. Like, is it the same as commercial? Or are you guys sitting down drinking your beer and then coming up with names? Or
no? I mean, oftentimes the name is formulated before the actual beer is. Just because if you think about it, you have to design a label. It has to be approved by the federal government. It has to be approved by the state. So oftentimes, and we'll formulate different flavors for the names that we develop. But a lot of times it's sitting in a room, yucking with each other, just trying to throw shit against the wall and see what sticks.
So is it like you kind of look out and see what's going on in the world and come up with something, or like the time of year?
Well, certainly. I mean, the idea is to kind of evoke memories or inspire you to want to go to certain areas and do certain things. I mean, that's what the entire concept behind the brewery is to kind of show how wonderful North Central Pennsylvania is and how great the outdoor culture is in Pennsylvania. So sometimes it's as simple as like, do you remember sledding as a kid? Like, we're like, yeah, it's a great name, sledding, let's do that. And things like goggles and flannel weather. I mean, if you come through Central Pennsylvania between October to December, I think just about everybody's in a flannel. So
Yeah.
With boots on, absolutely.
Yeah. And Brandon had a great question in the chat. So, and like we were kind of talking about beforehand, real quick. So we got Mike LaRosa, the director of brewing, on our podcast right now. Just roll along here. And I'm just gonna keep. I'm like, Mike, if you ever need a cheerleader, just like I don't even care what's on top. I will do it. Whatever you need. Like,
I think I got enough cheerleaders with my mom, so
I'll be the New Trail mascot if you have like a costume at 6 or 7 or whatever.
I think my mom would do that too. So,
but Brian had a great question. He was asking, so where did all these collaborations come from? Right, like that's actually one of the notes I had was how Pointing North, what you did with Levante, is one of my favorite beers I've ever had. It's like the amount of times I went to the stables and it was obscene. That was like around November. But yeah, so where did this whole like collaboration come from, and how important is that to you to kind of mix and match with like places from your hometown?
Yeah, so I mean, like collaborations are cool for brewers. I mean, there's not a lot of formal education for brewers available. At least there wasn't when I started in the industry. There was a few schools and not too many programs. So a lot of what we did was, you learn from a guy like I did, or you end up trying to beat your way into, beat down the door to get into somewhere. And that guy might not know what he's doing, but you end up learning from him. But you can sort of stem your learning by talking to other brewers. It's a competitive industry, but it's not overly competitive to the point that we don't all sort of see the rising tide sentiment. Like, I might as well try to help everybody out to create better beer. So I think that's where the base idea of collaborating amongst breweries are. And I'd say we sort of follow the same sort of sentiment. Like, we want to collaborate with, my friends. I've been doing this now for 10 plus years. So I've made a lot of friends along the way. So it's nice to kind of have an excuse for them to swing through the brewery 3 hours into the middle of nowhere to come hang out with me for a day. But it's also about trying to explore new flavors, or spending time with each other to talk about new ideas, or we all read a lot of the same papers and posts, books as far as brewing is related. It's like, hey, did you read this? Like, have you tried it? What was your successes? What were your failures? You know?
That was gonna be my next question, was the industry itself, and if it is it competitive, which it is. Obviously, there's microbreweries and craft breweries everywhere. So I guess my question would be, how do you like separate yourself in such a crowded environment? Obviously collaboration is great because everyone's going up together and all that, but at the end of the day, you still have to move forward yourself, right?
I mean, ultimately, we still only make up, it's less than 20% of the market, and as related to big beer. So helping each other come up is certainly the sentiment that a lot of breweries take. And there's certainly a lot of larger breweries within Pennsylvania. I don't want to blow up their spots, but there's certainly a lot of larger breweries that I reach out to still for help, and the owners are more than willing to, give me an hour of their time just to be like, hey, like, I've never been here before. What do I do? Like, oh yeah, I think, we did that. That was, 15 years ago. Here, you should try this, this, and this. Oh, cool. Thanks, man.
That's
cool.
Great. There's like a gentleman's kind of, like culture in there. Like just everyone helping each other instead of competing against each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, certainly there's definitely competition in business, but I'd say for the most part, people are pretty cool about it.
And it's funny. So Zach, you're going to laugh when I ask this next question. So I was going to actually ask you about the Expedition Pack because I went twice to East Branch and got it. Then ran to Wegmans, got it when they had it there. Like, I love it. Yeah. Morning Necessities, by the way. Like you're going to try. Like, it's the best. It's like one of my. First of all, it's my favorite dark beer I've ever had. Like, oh my god, it's to die for. Like, I might just drive up like 3 hours or whatever to Williamsport just to get them and bring them back. But it's funny. So, and I'll add in because my question is more about the Expedition Pack, but
sure.
You'll get a kick out of this. So we play in like the Downingtown Recreational Softball League.
Yeah.
And you're cracking up. So East Branch was the brewery that won the league. And Jack actually filled in our team. Remember that when you played for us? You and Nina played that day?
It was like 100 degrees, yeah.
They were good. I don't know if they talk about their softball program.
No, I can't say they've talked to them about their softball program.
Well, so we're saying we're going to start drinking New Trail beers before our games this year, and I think that's what's going to, we're going to get there.
East Branch, I've said it a few times now, and I'll say it again. I think East Branch makes some of the best beer in the state. So I was super excited to work with those guys on Confluence. So I've known Sean, one of the owners there, for a number of years, and Kevin, the head brewer there, is super talented. I mean, he was brewing at Victory forever. So I'm always really excited to swing through there when I'm in Downingtown.
That's so cool. I was going to say, so to that point about the pack, like, what was it about, Pizza Boy or Pizza Box and wait, hold on, it's Pizza Boy, right?
Yep.
Yeah, geez, all right. Pizza Box is always my place. See, I'm losing. I'm getting all excited I'm just thinking about them.
That's all good.
We rolled through a pack yesterday during Super Bowl Sunday, by the way. But, starting with the Morning Necessities. But I guess, was it really cool, too, just because they're all different types of beers? Like, how fun was it putting that together? And I'll add the staple of, I saw there's a sequel now.
I'll talk. I guess I'll touch on it a little bit.
I'm pumped.
So, I mean, the idea sort of came to us and stemmed from 2020. 2020 sucked for everybody, and we were like, well, we missed out on so many like fun adventures and trips, and wouldn't it be fun to kind of produce all of these collaborations and put them in one pack and throw it around through the entire state? I think it was my business partner Dave that came up with the idea. And he brought it to me. I was like, yeah, that's a cool idea. And he's like, yeah, we should do it. I was like, okay, yeah, we'll do it. And then like all of a sudden, like, I'm like, oh, like we're moving forward with this? Okay, I guess so, yeah. So we're shooting to do one every month. I don't know if that's going to happen because it is quite a bear as I've gotten further and further into the project. It's just like herding cats, it's like dealing with, I'm through January and we're packaging February, and I'm getting through label design on March, and I'm reaching out to the April breweries and trying to work on who's in May. It's just like it's juggling a lot of balls right now. So I mean, the idea was to kind of focus on our friends and the styles of beer that they make very well, and that we would like to think that we make well too, and try to work on an idea together and try to get it into as many Pennsylvania's hands as possible. So, excuse me. Go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. Now, just to add in there, you're just talking about your schedule being so busy. That's the one thing has blown my mind. Everyone, you usually feel like the talk is quality over quantity or quantity over quality. Like there's that back and forth. You mastered both. Like there's new beers coming out. It seems like every week, and you're just talking about how busy you are. But the taste is unbelievable. And if any, like, obviously I can say it, but if anyone goes on Untappd, they see how great your beers are rating. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, we're really proud of our process. I'm really proud of my staff. I'm really proud of everybody that works for the company and works with us to create our dream. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm a busy guy. I wear a lot of hats. I was thinking about it today. It's like I was in the tasting room on Friday, and the mill broke on Sunday, and the packaging line needs help on Monday. And by the way, I've got like 7 meetings in between now and then, so just a lot going on.
Well, I think that speaks to the work ethic that you alluded to earlier, and just your leadership too. You're not afraid to get in the trenches with everybody, which is what produces such great results as well. So that's awesome.
Yeah, lead from the front, So and try to stand back, and eventually, hopefully, everybody gets to do it on their own, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, it's fun. Just to add one more thing on your mind, then to that point. So the chat had a great point from Joe P. was saying, are you guys thinking of expanding, outside of Williamsport, like opening another brewery? How like Victory did, obviously, Kennett Square and Park Square.
I mean, there's lots of pipe dreams, so I won't say anything specifically, but we've joked about a lot of things. So maybe someday. It's kind of the running joke. Maybe someday.
Well, there's not a doubt in my mind with your work ethic and the sky's the limit for you guys. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, for sure. To touch back on, so I can shamelessly plug the February pack. We are really excited about the February pack. That'll be, let me pull up my phone so I can look at a calendar, so I can look at dates.
Oh yeah, get it out.
So we will start wholesaling the February Expedition pack next week. So it'll be released at the brewery probably on the 17th, probably on Wednesday, and it'll start to hit shelves in some areas on the 17th, and then that means it'll continue to hit shelves in more volume the following week, the 22nd through the 26th. So we're doing just get my ducks in a row again, just because, like I said, I got a lot of balls to juggle.
No, please, you can. I'll camp out in the cold. It's fine. I'm seeing what Brother's saying in the chat too. He's like, I'll work for beer. Honestly, at this point, I think that's what I'm doing with my work at my company. At this point, they pay me, and then I do trail. It's a perfect balance in my life.
Yeah, well, you only really rent beer, right? So,
yeah, right.
That's a good point.
So in the February pack, it's Love City, Imprint, Grist House, and 2SP. So Love City, we're doing a dry hopped American Pilsner. Imprint, we're doing a hazy double IPA. Grist House is a hazy single, and 2SP is a hoppy American Imperial Stout.
God.
So sort of focusing on what everybody's strong at again.
That's so cool too, like how you're working with their strong point. It's not you're just walking in and saying, "Oh, we're great, so we're going to do X, Y, and Z." Like it's
it's all about collaboration, right? So
it reminds me of the two musical artists who just put a beautiful song together.
Right? Yeah.
I was gonna say too. Now I know like hiking is kind of a lot based around in this whole with the cans and the art and stuff. So is that one of your big hobbies? Being like obviously outdoors and just getting out in the whole Williamsport thing, or is that something new since you've been up there?
No. I grew up hiking, and I was in Boy Scouts. I'm an Eagle Scout, so being out in the outdoors and participating in those sorts of activities was definitely something that was very influential, I guess, on my personality. So I don't have as much free time as I'd like, but I like to get out. I kayak quite a bit. I love to sail. I have a motorcycle now, so that sort of fills some of my time, wind in my face. But certainly love to hike and just be outside.
There's some good fishing spots up there, right?
Yeah, great fishing. I'm not a fisherman personally, but but I've been told that some of the best fly fishing in the States is here. So,
Zach, we have to go up there.
No, we have to. So one quick question. So a lot of our listeners are kind of all over Pennsylvania and some other areas in the country, and So just for them to know, where can they, like, I know you're in Williamsport, obviously, but where are some locations where they could snag some of this great beer?
That's a really great question. So I wish I could give a better answer for it. We are distributed in all counties inside of Pennsylvania right now. We are not distributing outside of the state right now, and we could not distribute outside the state right now because I don't have any more beer to give. So when people are complaining online that they wish that there was more beer, it's like I'm really trying. Like I'm losing sleep over it. I'm starting to. I think I have a gray hair right here too. I'm starting to go gray just trying to figure out how to get more beer out so that more people can enjoy it. So we're really trying our hardest to fulfill the orders that we can. So. I'd say the best bet, if there is a Wegmans near you, Wegmans is generally a pretty good spot to find our beer. Generally, if you are in a spot with a strong distributor that has a lot of square footage, they're generally a good spot to go to. So it really depends on where you live. There's so many accounts, I couldn't just tell you, rattle off a list. So.
No, that's great. Yeah.
And I'll ask like the dorky, I feel like the podcast question that you have to ask, and probably will say it's like asking me like what kid would you love the most type of thing. But do you have like a top 5 beers like that you've like, if you had to rank them in your head of like that you like the most?
That I like the most that are my beers or other people?
From the New Trail catalog, if you will.
The New Trail catalog, yeah. So I mean, it's easy. Number 1 for me is Lazy River Pils. Okay. I love that beer. I brewed that beer for my mom, but it is also a labor of love. Pilsner amongst brewers is kind of like the I always call it like the margarita pizza of beer. Like if you can make a good margarita pizza, you can generally make pretty good pizza. So Pilsner for me is that, and Lazy River sort of is that beer for me. So I'd say it's Lazy River. I really love SOB. That's our American IPA. That's our flagship American IPA. I'm being really corny because they're right now they're all core beers. I'm not shamelessly plugging all my core beers,
but that's so important that how good these are.
Yeah, I really love. So I'd say it's Lazy River is number 1, SOB is number 2, Broken Heels has to be number 3. Moonlit's number 4. I love that beer. It's a drier imperial stout. It's full flavor, lots of chocolate, lots of roast. And then, weird 5th beer. Maybe if I can plug Flannel Weather, the red label, which is with Nelson Sauvin. I really love Nelson Sauvin as a hop that's got that nice like white grape, dank, weedy sort of characteristics and still sort of citrusy. So
that's so. It's funny because I have 5, and then none of those. I love all those, and that's not even in my. Those are different top 5.
What do you have a top 5 written down right there? So
it's funny. I didn't even really put them in order, so I'm pointing like I just love them all so much. So I had mine as Pointing North, Forest, Up the Creek, Daypack, Morning Necessity, and Rock Run.
I forgot Pine Cone.
Oh God, I love Pine Cone too.
Yeah.
Oh my God, and the one other thing I was gonna say, so to that point, like, is there a beer that's harder to make? Like, I know that's probably like a juvenile way of asking it, but like looking at your whole 12-month calendar, is it like, okay, this one's gonna take like a little bit more effort?
Yeah, for sure. Anytime we're producing, I mean, we spend a lot of time and attention to detail on all of our beers, but lagers and pilsners in specific are without flaw. Like there's nothing to hide behind to make those beers taste any better. It's all about your technique, your process, your recipe. You cannot screw up anything.
And I know you talked about it earlier about cleanliness. Is that like the number 1 most important thing to having that consistent crisp beer every time?
That's certainly the start for it, but a lot of it boils down to general brewing practices, and you can't mess up any brewing practice at any time, but specifically on Pilsner Day. So,
and how does that work too? I guess like because you're doing a bunch of different beers, like. Is there a Pilsner Day? Like, how does that work too? And I guess I'll morph it into 2 questions. How are you being like innovative and sustaining? Like, because you're talking how busy you are, but you guys are also creative and just blowing all of our minds with this stuff.
Yeah, there's a couple questions in there.
Yeah,
I think
see that a lot.
I think the first question was how do I schedule beer, and we schedule based on the season, right? So I mean, we know that people drink more beer around the holidays, and that January people generally try to lose weight and they they don't drink as much. So you sort of have to schedule around when people are going to buy the beer, and then it's just figuring out when people are going to buy what beers, right? So we know that like I couldn't release Candy Hearts in August, right? Like that wouldn't make any sense. So you release Candy Hearts around Valentine's Day, and then once you sort of build a base schedule, you can fill in and try to figure out what you can do to mess around and innovate. I guess that leads into your second question. So like we've been fortunate enough recently that some of our smaller tanks have been empty, so we've been able to work on newer milkshake concepts. That's where like Snickerdoodle and candy canes and gumdrops and why am I blanking on the most recent ones? Tiramisu and chocolate covered strawberries. That all comes from being like, well, I got extra space. I might as well see if I can make something cool happen out of it. So.
Okay, and I got a novice brewing question for you. So roughly, and this probably varies. So roughly, how long is the process from start to finish? Does it take to get?
Grain to glass from the time that we mash in or mill in to the time that you can consume it. It can be anywhere from 14 days to 30 to 45 days, really depending on the style. So like an ale or an IPA is going to take 14 to 17 days, but a Pilsner or lager can take anywhere from 30 to 45 days. So, but as far as the actual creation of the liquid, the wort or the sugar water that gets fermented out and eventually becomes beer, it's about 6 to 8 hours.
It's probably a stupid way of asking this, but like how many steps? I mean, there's like probably a million of them, but like generally, like at a high level, like how many steps are like maybe like parts in the process of the workflow of making beer are there?
Oh, geez.
Generally, I obviously all vary and stuff from different.
It depends on how. Yeah, it depends on
your reaction
really,
shows everything.
Yeah. I mean, it could be as simple as 3. There's wort production, there's fermentation, and then there's packaging. Or you could look at wort production as a whole, and there's 8 major steps in that, and then fermentation has 6 major steps in that, and then packaging has 6 major steps in that. So it's as simple or as complicated as you want to make it. So.
Well, it's funny too because I saw a video on YouTube. I'm drawing a blank on the show, but before I was putting my notes here for the show, I saw these guys tour the brewery, and I said to my roommates, I was like, I would rather tour that than Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. Like, whatever this guys did, like what's it been like just growing the brewery? And to that point, what's it like going there? So, like, we're obviously going to go, and we'll let you know when we come up.
Yeah, for sure. Let me know.
Oh, my God, absolutely. Like, Zach, we should do a fantasy draft up there.
Oh, there you go.
That'd be fun.
We have to.
And we should go watch a show. That'd be really fun.
Yeah, I'm happy to do another show.
Oh, my God. That'd be awesome. We do one live at the brewery. But I guess to that point, like, do you mind just talking a little bit about the brewery and just like how what it's like up in Williamsport and just how it's growing and stuff?
Yeah, sure. So Williamsport's like a small city in north central Pennsylvania. There's probably about 30,000 people here. We're situated in a valley. So if you're here in the morning, the fog sort of rolls through and down the river. It's really picturesque, and being here in the fall is really, really gorgeous with all the color changes. So it's a logging town originally. Williamsport's was known as at one point held the most millionaires per capita in the world. I believe that happened in the late 1800s because of the logging industry. So there's gorgeous Victorian homes just littered throughout the hillside around here. And because of that, there's all these really cool brick old warehouse buildings sort of just that eventually became vacant up here. And the town sort of had a recession in the mid 1900s, 1940s, and sort of was trying to find a identity. And eventually in the late 90s, early 2000s, I guess the oil and gas industry sort of fracking picked up here, which revitalized the town. And New Trail is sort of a product of that revitalization. People were interested in newer things, and we sort of adopted one of those old brick buildings that I was talking about. was originally the Dodge Planing Company. Logs used to float down the river, and they would be planed. They would float off into a dike, and they'd get put into this building and planed down into pieces of wood. And so you come into the brewery, and it's old, rustic, industrial. A lot of the bricks, have imprints and stamps on them, so you can tell that the building itself is old. If you look up in the rafters, the beams are all sort of like wonky, like it's seen some stuff. So we grew that from a small little brewery into a modest sized brewery, I suppose. Does that answer your question?
That's so cool. The history behind the area and the start of the brewery.
Yeah, I sort of went off on a tangent there.
No, I'm just going up there right now.
Sidetracked. Yeah, it's really pretty up here. I've never lived in a prettier spot in my entire life.
And the chat had a great question too. What's it been like with this pandemic too, right? Because you talk about how important the small business, and I mean that's another hurdle you guys have had to hop over through this whole.
Yeah, I mean it's been a lot. There's no other way to say it. It's a moving target. Like owning a business is a moving target, and owning a small business is a moving target, and owning a craft brewery is a moving target. And then all of a sudden the target goes from like on a normal year, kind of like this, to just being like, bum, 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 bum. Like the rules change all the time. Sometimes the bars are open, sometimes they're not. Sometimes people are allowed to leave their house, sometimes they're not. Like, our tasting room is one of the few ways that we can really interact with the general public. So it's been odd at the times that we've had to shut it down. But even with it open, it's not open the way that we want it to be open. I don't feel entirely comfortable just walking around talking to strangers about how's your experience, what are you doing, how do you like the beer, like sitting down. Like, oftentimes you could catch me before the pandemic just sitting with new people all the time, just trying to talk to them about what's going on and how they ended up there. So.
And it's funny because we're talking about the low point. How about the high point, the Lily World Series, right? Like I'm sure that's been wild. What's that like when that weekend comes? I'm sure the business is booming.
So business in Williamsport is generally booming during the Little League World Series, but we've only been open for 2 of them. So, and people didn't really know about us in the first 2 years that we were open, and as far as people that were traveling in. So we didn't see a huge uptick in business on those weeks, but Williamsport as a whole is a lot of fun. Those 2 weeks, there's parades, there's festivals, there's all sorts of out of towners that are coming in and trying to learn about Williamsport and enjoy our stuff. But at the same time, one of the reasons I really love Williamsport is that you can walk in anywhere, like, and everybody, it's sort of like being in Cheers. Everywhere you go, everybody knows your name. Like, so during Little League, like everybody's like, I guess I'm gonna go camp that week, or I'm gonna get out of town that week, because this town that's equipped to hold 30,000 people all of a sudden holds 100,000 people. So it's funny. I'll sidetrack a little bit even further. Like when I moved up here, people would complain about traffic. They're like, "Oh, I got stuck on traffic on my way to work." I was like, "Where are you running into traffic out here?" And they're like, "Oh, I hit the traffic light down the street." I'm like, "Oh, you hit a traffic light. You didn't hit traffic." So like traffic to them is like getting stuck at a traffic light more than one turn. I was like, you haven't hit traffic until you're driving down 76 and your air conditioning doesn't work in July, and you're stopped trying to get to the airport. Like, that's traffic. You hit a traffic light.
It's like, let me tell you about the 202 construction project.
Yeah, right.
Well, for a decade. Like,
yeah. So the 2 weeks during the Little League, there is actual traffic here, though. So people complain about that.
That's so cool. And Brian had a great point too. I was just giving you guys credit for just staying, just working hard and staying open through this whole deal. And by the way,
for sure.
To respond to his point, I was dead ass wrong about the Super Bowl on the show yesterday. We did, Zach. Yikes! Like, talk about show to forget. We all were very, very high on the Chiefs. Which, by the way, that Super Bowl sucked, Mike. Like, I don't know if you watched any of it, but it was not.
I watched it, assuming that we'd talk about the Super Bowl. So I'm not, like I said earlier, I'm not a huge sports guy. But
you had to go through that for us, like.
Yeah. I generally watch the Super Bowl. I generally keep up with the Eagles, but I'm not a religious Sunday football guy. I'm not like sitting on the couch Sunday at 10 o'clock in the morning to try to catch every game. So.
if the two of us would make a normal football fan, then I think really, honestly, Zach too, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, that's what's been fun too, because I know when we reached out, you're probably thinking, "What the actual hell is like a sports podcast like reaching us about?" But I mean, that's the thing we like about the living room, just shooting the hell out of like everything and just talking about, like hey, we're drinking beer in the living room. Like that's kind of the way we look at it. And,
yeah, man. I mean, beer is a part of pretty much every major life event. So I mean, I don't know. Maybe a funeral home is going to reach out to me at some point and say, "Hey, you want to help on my podcast?"
Graveyard Hazy IPA.
Yeah.
Then you got the zombie people too one.
Yeah, for sure. Pumpkin beer. So.
And all right, so I got a question for you from the chat too. So they're wondering, do you have in your head? And this is probably another thing. Like, dude, did you not just hear me? Like April's, but people want to know. Do you have any maybe plans in your imagination for maybe like a Little League World Series style beer or something to release out there that has that vibe to it?
Yeah, so I mean, the World Series is the last 2 weeks of August or the central 2 weeks of August. In the past we've done a beer called Who the Hellas on First. It's a Hellas lager.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm a big Abbott and Costello fan, and that was it pays homage to both. I don't know that we'll have the time to do it this year. I hope that we do, but I've always joked that we'll do Who the Hellas, what's on second. I don't know, third base, get through the whole skit, but who knows.
And so I'm looking at we got some Williamsport recommendations here. So we got was it Pudgy's Pizza?
Yeah, Pudgy's Pizza. Yeah, for sure. Mr. Sticky's is the real deal.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, people up here love their junk food, and those sticky buns are the real deal.
Well, it's funny too. So let me ask you this: you probably had a trillion beers, right? So I got one. So when I'm in healthcare IT, so I travel a lot to different hospitals and stuff. So Boulevard is one I love from the Kansas City area that had a ton of Tank Sevens and all that. Dogfish Head in Delaware, that's obviously way closer. But I'm just trying to think someone's are there any off the Pennsylvania New Glarus is one I love, by the way.
I love New Glarus, yeah, for sure.
Oh my God, isn't it the best?
It's wonderful.
Zach and I had a hell of it. Should we tell them that story? Because you're gonna laugh and just these guys are rookies. So we're both diehard football fans. Packers for me, obviously. He's a Giants fan. So this is what Zach was 4 or 5, 6 years ago, maybe.
I think it was 5 years ago.
Okay, so it was about 5 years ago, and we go fly in Milwaukee the night before, have a night before we went to the Packers-Giants game up at Lambeau Field. So we're at this casino, and we did well. So we're a little bit nice, so we go over. We're have to celebrate. So we're gonna have the finest fresh Wisconsin beer. Let's get me a summer shandy. Find you in the end of October, beginning of October.
Yeah.
So the bartender was no, here, try that. Have you heard of this? And we're like, no. Yeah. So he gives us Staghorn, which was the New Glarus Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
And then he was telling us how obviously it's only sold in the state, which I was thinking about too when you were saying how it's only sold in PA. I feel like
we talk about New Glarus a lot when we talk about the business model.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you been to that brewery before?
I've never been to New Glarus. I've enjoyed a lot of their beer, but I can't say I've ever been. I'd like to go.
Oh yeah, that's all my fault.
I do a lot of business in Wisconsin, but
I was gonna say, how much does that when you were saying earlier? I'm a brewer. The first thought I thought was the Milwaukee Brewers. How much does that in the culture there and just other places maybe the Pacific Northwest with the hops in Oregon and why?
Yeah, I travel to the Pacific Northwest. I try to get out there once a year for hop selection. Wisconsin is where my tank manufacturer is, so I'm a representative for them. When I was consulting, I was selling a lot of their brew houses. So I've been to Milwaukee a couple times.
Oh, the third ward's where it's at.
The what?
The third ward, I guess, is that what they call it? Yeah. That was a fun time.
Yeah. Third Space Brewing Company, I think, is down there. So.
They could tell we were from out of town, so they were pushing us free Staghorn all night. I don't remember that, Karen, but I remember it at least, and it was amazing. Just great people, great experience.
Yeah, it's always funny every time I meet somebody from out there that I'm doing business out there, and they're like, I'm very fast paced. Even up here, I'm very fast paced for a lot of people in North Central Pennsylvania, and they're like, "You're not from around here, are you?" I'm like, "No, I'm not. I want to move quick."
Yeah, right.
So it's funny. There's one thing I knew I forgot to mention to you, and the chat Kira is awesome. It just reminded me. She was saying, "Have you seen New Trail beer New Trail beer trees?" So we have an addiction, like I said. So you can't see this podcast because we just have the zoom up. So we have an artificial Christmas tree. And what we did for the ornaments this year is we just did New Trail, all of the trees. So I'm pulling it up for the audience. So I'm looking at it. So we had through hikes, snow tracks, both moonlets, snowmen. Oh my God, this ugly sweater pointing north, drift. Oh my God, like so. You can tell, so it's like almost like this, like my initiation to the club. I'm like, oh, trust me, we speak the code. Like,
Yeah, no, I hadn't seen a Christmas tree done up with just New Trail, but I've seen lots of fan art and things like that. So,
and I guess that'll be kind of one of my last questions. Is, so I guess how cool is it interacting with the community? You talk about that throughout the interview and how important that is to you, and that's so cool to us just hearing it. Just how important that just interact with everybody and just the little things behind the business.
Yeah, for sure. I love talking to people that consume our beer. I run our social media page, so I'm the one that talks to just about everybody that messages in or comments or whatever. I try to.
You got my dorky ass Instagram message to get started.
Oh, did you? I have no idea. I haven't been on social media in an hour. So because I'm the one that runs it, sometimes it becomes lackluster. It's like 3 days old. I'm like, they figured out what was on tap. Next.
and I guess. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I really love it. It's an important part of doing what we do, and it certainly fulfills me. I'll say, I like talking to people.
Awesome. No. So, Zach, do you have a question?
No, I was just saying, no, that's great to hear. Because not everyone's like that, so it's nice to see. Great to see that.
Yeah, I mean, some people like it, some people don't. And for me, I'm not there to sit there and convince you that I make the best beer. I know that I make the beer that I want to make, and I'm always trying to make it better. So if you like what you like, and you don't. But we don't always have to talk about beer.
Yeah. And hey, your beer brings people together. So
yeah, for sure, brings lots of people together. So
yeah, got Zach on the. See, we need to get Zach more on the bus. See, I'll put you on the spot here, Zach. This is a challenge. I swear, like every show, I'm like sitting here like drinking. People probably think I'm an alcoholic. I'm like, oh, so I got this another New Trail. It's really good. And so I got Zach to get Broken Hills, which you loved.
Oh, Broken Hills is my favorite.
Yeah, I like Broken Hills.
Love it. Yeah, love it. I'm on the bus. Don't tell me I'm not on the bus.
No, I'm not saying you're on the bus. I'm saying we need you more on the bus. I need you well, you don't have to be crazy like me. I'm obsessed. Don't be like me. That's the wrong thing. But we need to get more diversity here. Get some more. So actually, to that point, what are some new ones you have on deck and like that you're looking for, kind of looking down the pike into spring?
Sure. So, like I said earlier, I'm going to pull up my schedule just so I can speak a little bit more intelligently about this. But we're brewing Field today, so you'll see that out in early March. Expedition Pack is next week, like I was talking about. And then there is a number of St. Patrick's Day beers that we're working on. And they'll be out not next week, but the following week.
Speaking of Kieran's heart right there.
I know, I was about to say, like Kieran McCauley, that's like, it doesn't get more Irish than that, Mike.
Believe it or not, I'm Irish too.
Let's go.
I don't, it doesn't look it, but there's Flannel Weather Motueka coming out. There's lots of stuff coming out. But I mean, it's a new beer every week. So,
and to that point, so make sure you check out New Trail. I'll pull up all the website and the social media stuff for you guys. So check out the website. You can check out all sorts of cool stuff. And then social media, obviously, is where you guys have all these sorts of cool
social media is actually a better way to interact with what's going on with us. I'd say our website is adequate at best. If you wanna see what's going on at the brewery at any given time, social media is the way to do it. And then if you're interested in purchasing any of the fabulous New Trail swag, you can always go to newtrailbrewingoutpost.com. These things just hit the shelves the other day.
Oh, I like that.
Shameless plug on that. So
there you go.
No, you can. It's that point. We'd send you some SideTracked stuff.
But
for sure. Or something like that.
Yeah, I have to send you guys a care package as well. So.
Oh my God, no! Do you kidding me? No. You spending an hour of your time. First of all, it's funny. You're talking about the community being nice, talking. I'm like, God, you spent an hour with us. Like, that's
yeah. So it's funny every time I listen back to a podcast that I've done. I'm like, I can't believe people want to listen to me talk. Like, I sound like that. Like, no, that can't be right.
That's why I don't even listen to our shows. That's the feeling I get every time for myself.
Yeah.
Basically, that's the glue of it.
Yeah.
Oh man! But Mike, we want to thank you for jumping on with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
The Super Bowl talk for Thursday, like the rest of the ins and outs, because there's we got an entire off season to do it.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, I like that. All right, so real quick. So we'll plug ourselves real quick too in here and just talk real quick about our social media real quick. So If you want to check us out real quick on Twitch, you can check us out for all the video episodes there. You can follow us to the Hearts of Left. Subscribe to the right, and then also check us out on YouTube as well. It's funny, Zach, I have no idea. I was like looking, I'm like, where the hell did the Spotify and iTunes thing go? So I was doing that on the fly. So you can also check us out on Spotify, iTunes, and then check us out on our Instagram handle @_get_sidetracked. And then we do have a store, yeah. So you can check us out on the store as well with all sorts of good stuff. But yeah, this is a lot of fun. Mike, we appreciate you coming on. This was so much fun.
It was a ton of fun, guys. Thanks for having me.
Also, I was gonna say we were just a bunch of guys talking sports, so we hope, this is awesome.
Well, when you get your funeral home podcast up and going, I'm happy to hop on.
Awesome. Hey, anytime you're in the downtown area, we'll grab a beer together.
Yeah, for sure.
Or if we're in the
we'll be coming up to Williamsport.
Yeah, let me know. So,
definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome, Mike.